Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to take 2 of today's video. Normally, I wouldn't do 2 takes because if the video's crappy, I don't care. I'm going to post it anyway. But the video contained incorrect information, and I don't want incorrect information out there. So I called this a 4mm tube. I called it a 3/32 tube. It's 3 millimeters. We'll get to that later. First thing is I want to thank a couple of my viewers. First is MW. And MW got one or two of my short circuit kits. And we talked a bit, and I forget his name. You know, there's so many different names running in and out. So MW, I know who you are. I know where you are. I know where you are. It's under that tape. He's from Canada. Sent me a couple of rudders and a couple of little turn fins. And I wished I would have had these little turn fins before I put the larger, weird-looking ones on the bat boat. Although for the bat boat, I guess bat fins, yeah. But these little fins were perfect. So they will find their way to a good home. He also included a couple of rudders. One really nice one. They're both essentially the same design, but obviously from 2 different CNC machines. One, the red one, is a much nicer made one than the silver one. It's interesting to compare the quality of the two. The red one was really nice. Okay, so now it's time to thank my second viewer. Now, my second viewer I will call Jim, because in fact his name is Jim. And he's a frequent contributor down below to my videos. And to be quite honest, he's given me some very good ideas in the past. So I was talking about how I was going to do water cooling. The typical in the cavitation plate, a hole and a pickup from the prop blast. And I was going to do something fancy. And then I was thinking about telescoping tubes to take up all this motion. And Jim said, well, why don't you just do a through haul, and pick it up in the bottom of the sponson? And I'm looking at this and I'm going, how the hell, this foam's just pushed in here. It's jammed in there. How the hell would I get in here and cut a pickup and get a tube that I could get out in here? And then how would I keep it away from the batteries? Because I want the batteries up against the side to give room for the drive shaft. And I'm looking at that. I'm going, you know what, Jim? That's just impossible. There's no way on earth I could do that. And then Jim calls our mutual friend, Captain Obvious, and says, Captain, go over and talk to Dr. Jet. So the captain comes over here with a 2x4 and starts smacking me upside the head, going, boy, listen to me. And I'm going, but Captain Obvious, there's no way I can get it in here. And Captain Obvious says, boy, look at the other side. Oh, I have a big access hole right here where I could put a larger diameter tube right in there like that, put a bend in it so it would run along the bottom of this tunnel, and then poke a hole in this rather thin barrier between the flood chamber and the cabin, put a doubler on it, and have the pipe coming out. That way, it's out of the way of all the electronics. It's out of everybody's way. It's clean. It's simple. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Thank you, Jim, for sending him over. Now, let's talk about the rudder linkage. What I finally settled on is I took a servo arm, the longest one I had, and put it in here such that the center of the servo arm is on my pivot rod. So I got my distances perfect, I got my angles perfect, I got the holes perfect, so everything's good to go. And I used these micro quick connects that have a 1/32 hole, which will just fit this Sullivan 507 cable. It's like a little tiny brake cable for a bicycle. And that goes inside the Sullivan 507 tube sheath, which fits inside this 3mm brass tube. Now, it fits a little bit sloppy, so we're going to talk about how we're going to make this watertight. Even if I didn't do anything, it would be pretty watertight. But because of the way this is shaped, if the boat's upside down, although it should never really be upside down, if the boat's upside down, water could flow that way. But with this much flotation and such to counteract the weight of the servo that I'm going to put up high, it should all be good. So, this tube is going to exit right here where I've marked it. And I'm going to make a mandrel on the lathe. Now, a mandrel is nothing more than a round something with a groove in it. You know, block of wood, anything. Just what I have in the toolbox. So I'll make a mandrel with the right radius here, heat and anneal this tube, and I'll make it so it exits here, and it'll be flush with the outer surface because the transom's pretty thick in this thing. So it'll come here, it'll go up, it'll bend to 90 degrees, and then right here at the top, I'll have another carbon fiber plate with a couple of holes to support the other end of this after it's gone through its 90-degree bend, or as it's going through its 90-degree bend. We'll see how the bend works out. And then I'm going to make a bulkhead that looks like this with a hole cut in it for the servo and mount the servo up here like this. Now, I don't like putting the weight up high just for the self-righting thing, but it'll be fine. I have this bulb to counteract it. So part of the reason for doing this is look how easy it's going to be to access the linkage. I've got 2 screws here that are easy to access, and merely the wire, maybe solder coated, sticking out of the back of the boat, nothing else, that slips in this little tiny hole. Same thing here, this tube coming around with a little wire sticking out of it. The wire is easily replaceable. I have ample spares. So what do you guys think? I think the water pickup, Jim, thank you for the idea. Thanks for sending the captain over to get my mind right. This is pretty cool. So all in all, coolness factor 8. Until next time, jet out.